All right, everyone. So we have the pleasure of having Bill Lowe today to give the guest lecture, our last guest lecture of this class. I'm really glad that he could do it, given that he was not feeling well earlier before, and we can reschedule this. So really happy to have him give this talk. I'm sure you guys have read his bio that was sent around previously, but I think today you'll be interested to hear talking about aircraft physics and risk models and how to think about that more. So with that, let's give a round of applause to our guest speaker, Bill Lowe. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck. And we'll see you later.
Sounds
Take
good.
care. And I'm happy to finally be able to do this. I'm sorry it took a while there. I was pretty sick. Corona was bad, and I was kind of surprised about that. But you've already seen what I've done before, so we'll skip that today. I think at this point in your life, how old are you guys?
I'm 22.
So that's what I thought.
I'm
22.
also 22.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So seniors. You'd be amazed at some of the people I've run into in my career who are really well-known and well-regarded people, even some analyst people who you would think need to understand this stuff. They didn't have the first idea. They really had zero clue. It was amazing to me. And then they kind of wanted to act like they did. But this is so bad. My former bosses at Deutsche Bank, who shall remain nameless, I'm not sure how they got that job because they didn't know the first thing about airplanes. Seriously, it took me a while to figure it out. And that's one thing I would say to you. One thing I wanted to make sure to say is after you graduate and you get done, you get a job and you're working somewhere and you see finally that your bosses don't get it, don't understand what's going on. You need to get out of there. I stayed too long thinking, somehow this will still work out. These people eventually left the bank and set up a leasing company and ran it right on the rocks, did some silly things. And it says here, once you break the eggs, you won't be getting any more. That's a fact of life in any business, really. So that was sad because I tried to help them too, had some ideas that they did not follow. And what they did do broke the company. So very sad. But over my life, I've studied airplanes in a big way. My dad was a pilot. I was born at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. And pretty much since I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old, I've been studying airplanes because I wanted to be a pilot too. Turns out I was colorblind, which is sad. But over the years, I really did learn a lot. And it does make a difference in terms of the values and the lease rates and, like I say here, what airlines may want to operate these airplanes. And luckily for me, I got to fly simulators in a big way. So I worked at Lufthansa for several years. And can you see my cursor moving? Can you see the cursor?
Yep.
So this first row here, these were the Lufthansa airplanes, 737 Classics, and then 747-400. And after 10 years of asking, I finally got to fly their 707 simulator, which was really cool. That's my dad's KC-135 airplane. And the E3 Sentry people in NATO, you still use that simulator. I think it's one of 2 left in the world. And it was really amazing, the difference between the later airplanes and this one. This was designed in the 50s, and they had not figured out the wing yet. So it was a very difficult airplane to fly. It was wobbly. So if you started a turn, if you were turning, you really had to pay attention. Like if you look down at the instruments for a second, you look up, oh, wow, it got out of whack pretty quickly. These airplanes were way easier to fly. And the 747 was so easy. It was amazing. It's so big and heavy. It just goes right through the middle of it, whatever it is, you know? The rest of these I flew in Orlando. They have a simulator convention every year. This airplane is a Navy AWACS plane. That may be the most difficult airplane there is to fly. It's a big turboprop. And if you add power, because the two propellers go the same way around, if you add power, the nose goes up and left. If you take even a little bit of power out, it just drops down and goes right. So any trying to get the speed right means you have to redo everything, all the way down to land on a ship. So it's amazing. This airplane is a Korean trainer made with Lockheed Martin based on the F-16, which was amazing. When you take off, you put the nose down a little bit, put the gear up. By the end of the runway, you have 450 knots. Just unbelievable. The F-18 too, same thing really. The F-5 is kind of the back in the day airplane, a lightweight fighter airplane. A-10 is a tank buster, basically a gun with an airplane built around it. This airplane is a Italian trainer. The Singapore Air Force and Israeli Air Force, a bunch of other ones use it too. And then all the helicopters that we'll skip today. So lucky me, if you ever get the chance to go in a simulator, you must do it. Even if you're not going to get to fly, you must go and check it out, see what's going on in there. So you see here, that doesn't look right, does it? Somebody messed up, and I think it's him or this guy here. Somebody's having a bad day. So basically, they've put a cargo container in there, pushed it to the back, and didn't think about the CG. And I say here, always a balancing act, even on the ground. And this airplane probably smacked on the ground back there too when that happened. Not good. But anyway, most airplanes are pretty much the same, unless it's a delta wing like the Concorde or a military like a Mirage. They're a bit different. But it's a tube and wing, and that goes all the way back to the B-47. But basically, the fact of every airplane is that the wing needs enough air molecules going fast enough over it, or it just doesn't work. And that means it's stalled. Jet airliners and most jet airplanes have swept wings, and that the angle, the 35-degree angle, was arrived at by Germany in the Second World War. So thanks again. Also for the Apollo program. And it has to handle a wide range of airspeeds, altitudes, and centers of gravity, as you see in this airplane. And there has to be no surprises. So to do that, I can't see it in this picture, but they have a horizontal stabilizer in the back. And that means that the airplane can be trimmed for how fast it's going right now, because as you go faster, the nose is more like that. When you take off, the nose is higher. So the wing in the back has to be able to move to handle that. And as we've seen in the MAX, it's a big deal. So we don't want to put the nose up too much because you'll stall. And you don't want to put it down either to go too fast or maybe hit the ground, as we've seen. So here's the deal. This is the CG, that little symbol, and that's where the weight is acting. And the lift from the wing is in the back of that. So that causes a nose down pitch moment, it's called. And that has to be balanced through all these different things that we mentioned. Also air density, angle of attack, flap settings, and bank angles and turns. You can't see it on here, but the stabilizer in the back is really an upside down wing. So it's curved on the bottom. And that means this vector is pointing down. And that means it also makes the plane weigh more. And if you fly it for 40 years, that's a lot of inefficiency. So to maintain the same altitude, this lift vector here needs to be at least equal to or greater than the sum of these two. So I say downforce here because that's what that is. And if you're in a turn, this lift vector tilts over. Say you bank that airplane over 45 degrees, which you wouldn't normally do. But if you did, that lift vector would be half that big. But these would be more or less the same. So to keep the same altitude, you have to pull back. And that puts G on the airplane too. Like if you're in the F-16, you pull back, you can put 9 Gs on yourself, which is a crushing kind of thing. So if you do that, you increase the angle of attack and you get more lift, but you put G on the airplane too. So you need to pull back even more to stay at the same altitude like you do in a holding pattern. So like the people that fly for United, they need to stay within plus or minus 50 feet of their assigned altitude, or they're going to hear about it. You know, you have to fly the airplane precisely. So this is what Boeing needed the MCAS system for, because in this holding pattern business, if you pull back too much and you get the angle of attack too high, you get the stall margin too small, and you might have a real bad day. So they didn't want that. And oh wait, let me show you one thing. I put this on here so you can see the angle of attack here. Not much right there. You see the angle right here? So the bottom one is what's called the relative wind. So that's the air hitting the airplane, basically, from a certain direction. So here it is down here too. Here it is down here too. This one down here has a huge angle of attack, and you can see the airflow in the back here on top of the wing is messed up. So this flow right here is what's making the lift up here too. Right here, it's not happening. This is what Boeing wanted to avoid, because you don't want to stall a Cessna, but with a max full of 180 people, you really don't want to stall. And this over here, this is a angle of attack indicator more for a general aviation airplane. In the F-16, there were 3 of these, one on the HUD, one over here, one over there. So it's a big deal. If they have 3, that means you better watch out. You know what I mean? In the military ones, there's a circle here. On the top is, I guess, a sideways greater than sign with the point down. And down here is one with the point up. So if the circle is lit, you're fine. If this arrow thing up here is lit, it points down. You need to put the nose down. And this down here means you need to put the nose up. And why airliners don't all have one of these, I don't know. Do you know about Air France 447? The accident where an A330 went too high, stalled. It was nighttime, no horizon. So they didn't figure it out. And they developed a descent rate of 10,000 feet per minute and hit the water. So if this can happen with Air France and a brand new A330, that's just crazy. I still can't believe that happened. So here, you can see this is a 787. You can see the angle of the stabilizer. So the leading edge is down compared to the back edge, the trailing edge. So that means it has a negative angle of attack. And that means this lift vector is a function of that. All airplanes hit turbulence. And if that makes the nose go down, this stabilizer downforce right here if you imagine that airplane, so the nose goes down like that, the tail goes higher, that negative angle of attack gets bigger, and this lift vector gets bigger too, and it makes the nose go back up again, just by the design of the airplane. Same thing, if you hit turbulence and the nose goes up, imagine that airplane again going like this, nose is up, tail is down, and it kind of squishes this lift vector because the angle of attack is less for the stabilizer and pushes the nose back down again. Also due to this situation here still. And that's why they do that. You know, they could have the center of lift be right above the center of gravity. But this imbalance here makes the airplane more stable. And that's why they have the stabilizer too. So this stuff happens all by itself. It's called passive dynamic longitudinal stability. This is the longitudinal axis. Passive means the pilots are just sitting up there. They don't have to do anything. And that means the coffin corner is less of a problem. Have you ever heard of that? Well, sounds bad, doesn't it? Here it is. Can you see that good? Mine's
yeah,
a little bit off on top here. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, it is a little bit cut off on top, but
yeah,
the rest
sorry about that.
All good.
But anyway, I use this picture here because it shows light airplanes and heavy airplanes. It makes a big difference. You can see light airplanes can go higher. I doubt 50,000. That's 50,000 feet. That's probably not right. But whatever, 45, let's say, or 40. This is a heavier airplane here. So you can see this line over here is the stall speed. So stall speed is a function of weight too. It kind of makes sense. Here's the heavier airplane, higher stall speed. And this colored area here is the coffin corner. So you can see the stall speed and the too fast speed here. This is maximum operating, the MO means. So when you're in your, the last time you went on an airplane and you were halfway through the flight, that means you're at your cruising altitude. You're just a couple of knots away from going too slow and stalling, and a couple of knots away from going too fast and overspeeding the airplane. Then it has to get inspected when you land. So it's a big deal. And so over here, I mentioned Air France 447. Basically, the guy pulled back too much when the captain was actually out of the cockpit and the guy in the right seat was flying. So he pulled back too much and went higher. He went above this point right here. So he went up in here, stalled the plane, and then didn't figure it out. And they also, like I say, they did not have an angle of attack indicator, which is silly in my view. I don't get it. I think airline pilots need to fly the plane more. But some of my friends here that I met at the glider field, 30 years ago or 25 years ago, they're now captains since many years. And I asked one, a couple of months ago, what do they say to you about when do you switch on the autopilot? He said, well, when we go through 1,500 feet, we're supposed to. He doesn't, because he's smart and he likes to fly airplanes too. Some of them like to push a couple buttons there, and the autopilot flies the plane the whole way then. In the 747-400, you could have the airplane land itself, and you could set the brake force too before you got on the ground. It's 1 through 5. If it's raining, you put it on 5. And the airplane would land and go right straight down the runway. It was kind of eerie, a little bit strange, really. But it would be nice. I think it would, it would improve safety a lot if these people had to fly the plane more. It kind of makes sense to me. So here, this is a cool picture. This is the weight vector again that we saw before. And these are the individual ones here. spread out over the wing. These are the lift vectors too, spread out over the wing again. Now this is an A380, so it's very heavy, but a lot of the weight is in the wings too, especially when it's full of fuel. And the engines are pretty big, and there's 4 of them too. So in a 777-300ER, it'd be a smaller fuselage, but not much. And there'd be one huge engine, 20,000-pound engine hanging over here and none out there. So the weight distribution would be more over this way, and the lift would be about the same. So this causes a bending kind of moment here where the wing attaches to the fuselage. And so that is, that makes a lot of force right there. And that means that the airplane has to be built strong enough to handle that. You ever heard of a wing box? No, inside the airplane there, in between the 2 wings, it's the wing box. And it's amazing, especially in this airplane and in the 777. Really big, heavy, very structurally robust. And it has to be, because you can see here, the vectors out here at the wingtip are way bigger than the weight. So that's gonna bend the wing up in a big way. Have you ever flown on a 787? If you do, look out the window when you're taking off. When you go down the runway, the wings are pretty much straight. As you go faster and faster, the wingtips rise up. Out of the wingtips, it really bends. It's a composite wing, like in the glider. Pretty amazing. But you can see the wingtip moves like 15 feet or something up. So it really is putting stress, and I mean the whole time, on the attachment here. And that is a built-in source of inefficiency too. And again, for 40 years maybe, if you convert it to a freighter. And David is back. This means the operating empty weight needs to be higher. And that means over 40 years, you're gonna burn a lot of fuel to take him around. And this is a blended wing body. This is kind of a more of a model, like a test development model that Boeing has done with a bunch of other people. But here's that same lift and weight distribution. So you see the weight is spread out more because this is wider than the fuselage anyway. And the engines are there too in the back. And the lift, you see a lot of the lift comes from the fuselage itself. So it's kind of a lifting body. If you've ever heard of that, the development vehicles that led to the space shuttle were lifting bodies, basically a flying bathtub. So they didn't really have wings. They got their lift from their shape and their airspeed too. That's why the shuttle came back with a 22-degree nose down angle to the ground. So you can see, compared to the tube and the wing airplane, because this is all composite and it is also developing lift by itself, this is a way more efficient design. And also because the airflow over the body part is accelerated, that air goes into the engines and that makes it more efficient too. So pretty cool. And the operating empty weight required to handle all this is just way less. And there's no tail surface too. So that gets rid of the parasite drag of having things hang out in the wind. And also that downforce we talked about that makes the plane weigh more for 40 years is not there. And because they'll have these airplanes be fly-by-wire, it'll be unstable. But by using fly-by-wire, you can handle all that. And this might result, some people say, in a 27% fuel burn reduction, which is massive. Have you heard of open rotor engines? You should read about that. It's interesting. But you know what? When I started at Deutsche Bank, they had already been talking about that for several years. So way back in the early 80s, they started with that. There was a problem with, they were not sure they could make sure that the blades stayed on and didn't go smacking into the fuselage and, you know, hurting somebody. So there's a lot of problems. I have a question for you now. What do you see as the main impediments to introducing such things?
I think for something like this, it could probably, I guess, be A, like research costs for the manufacturing companies, and then B, costs
Right.
for like the airlines to have to train pilots to take on these new aircraft.
That probably wouldn't be a problem. It'll be about the same,
Oh, really?
I think, for the pilots. The thing I see these engineer people with stars in their eyes saying how great this is going to be and we're going to do it in 10 years or whatever. I always have to think, because of my, I guess, exposure to it for so many years. Think about this. If you're a lessor or an airline and you're owning all these airplanes, zillions of dollars worth, and also say you're a government who has guaranteed the loan, or you're one of these banks who needs, you know, in say 8 or 10 years, if the airline goes bad, you need that aircraft value to be the right number. If you have some new airplanes like this with a 27% increase in efficiency just in fuel burn, what's going to happen to the value of all those airplanes? It's going to get hammered. And I see that as the main reason. I don't think we'll see airplanes like this for 20 years, 25 years even. It's just the way it is. You know, the critical mass of all those airplanes out there right now that are a tube and a wing. Plus, if you think about, just look at GE. For the 777X, you know, they have the GE9X that they have invested $1 zillion in over all the other iterations of engines that they've done. So if you think about that, you know, the manufacturers, all the owners, whoever they might be, even insurance companies now are into this stuff. I don't see it happening really for a long time. I wonder, it'll be interesting to see really. But, you know, leasing has become now over 50% of the financing of airplanes. So they really are the market. They have already been the market for a long time, but now they really are. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. And now we come to the MAX, unfortunately. Here's a fancier diagram of the wing. Here's the relative wind, angle of attack. This is the chord line that goes through the trailing edge and the very front of the wing. That's how you measure the angle of attack. So we talked about a holding pattern and the stall margin. MCAS was allowed in the software to move the stabilizer, but based on only one angle of attack sensor. So a single point of failure in airplanes is not great for having a safe outcome. I'm still stunned by that. Like I said, my dad flew Boeing airplanes and they did a lot better job back then in the 50s and 60s and 70s and everything. So it's pretty sad. During the testing, they decided they need this thing to move at lower altitudes because holding patterns can be, you know, below 10,000 feet. They also changed it from 0.6 degrees to 2.7 degrees per activation. So over 4 times more. And the in the MAX, if you're a neutral stabilizer trim and this thing activates twice, that is full nose down. which is crazy. I have no idea what they were thinking. No one, including the FAA and the pilots and the airlines, nobody was told about MCAS. You can see Mr. Faulkner in the news and some of his emails and some of his colleagues' emails. It really makes them look awful. Horns and a tail. And really sickening. And I bet you guys know about what an if statement is. I bet you've used Excel for about 10 years now, haven't you? Yeah. How long would that take if we're faster than 290 or some number, if we're below 10,000 feet, if that thing activated already? Stop it. They relied on the pilots. They blamed the pilots for a year and a half or 2 years even, which is really sad. The pilots have two switches that I'll show you here in a minute to shut off the electricity to the stabilizer. But if it's jammed already because you're going 350 and you're out of trim, what are you going to do then? You can't turn this crank thing. So it's so wrong. And furthermore, and these classic 737s that I got to fly a bunch, and in the next generation ones too, so Dash 800, the MAX did not shut off the software like these airplanes did. If you hit the trim button, there's a trim button on the yoke. So on kind of the steering wheel of the airplane, there's a trim button to move the stabilizer electrically. And in the airplanes I got to fly in the simulator, I never heard about this speed trim because I was immediately moving that trim button. As soon as we took off, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and it was. So I never had any experience with speed trim until this mess. So if you've flown these airplanes for 15,000 hours and suddenly your MAX is not doing the same thing anymore, and nobody told you about this MCAS, that's going to make you be startled. And that's what happened in the Ethiopian accident. The captain was doing a good job with that trim button. He was winning. He was making the plane not hit the ground. He had the co-pilot looking in the manual, and he could find nothing because it's not in there. And the captain said, finally, look, okay, you fly the plane, I'm going to look in the manual. And the co-pilot didn't do the same sort of job as the captain was doing. And the airplane crashed. So really sad. And after the first accident, they did an airworthiness directive known as an AD, really. Guess what they left out of there too? This whole thing. So the biggest risk to Boeing was Boeing and the FAA and this designated authority thing where they let Boeing employees basically tell the FAA everything's fine. And I say here, C-level stock options, the root of all evil. This is where this all came from. These guys needed to make money for themselves and their company and buy Boeing shares again. So this is something that I guarantee no bank and no lessor and no insurance company and no finance company and none of their analysts saw coming, that Boeing and the FAA could somehow let this sort of thing happen. I still can't believe it myself. Here is the MAX. So this is the cockpit, and this square here is down here again. The trim button is over here. It's on the left side for the captain, on the right side for the co-pilot, and it is cool. You push the top to put the nose down, you push the bottom of it to put the nose up. Trim the nose up, I mean. This is the flap handle, speed brake, throttles, and that this white stripe here. Oh wait, sorry, it's over here. This is the trim wheel for the stabilizer. It's got a little handle that pops out, and you can rotate that unless it's jammed already. So they relied on the pilots to switch off MCAS with these two buttons right here, and then turn the wheel. But that didn't work, obviously. And still amazing, they blamed the pilots and lied about things over a long time on TV, and they got fined $2.5 billion for fraud, plus a bunch of other things. Cool that they got it right from my dad, because I might not be sitting here right now. And sadly, Ventral Strikes may have avoided the whole thing. I bet you never heard of that before. Here's a bunch of them. So at a higher angle of attack, like this airplane is in right now, taking off. This is a Global 7000 military version. So it's a business jet, really a big one. But the Ventral Strikes back here, when the angle of attack is high already, they aerodynamically resist the nose going up any further. So it's a little bit like what MCAS was intended to do. This airplane is a F-8 Crusader from the 1950s, designed in the 50s, Mach 2 airplane, pretty amazing. But you can see the Ventral Strikes here are like 10 feet long. There's the other side one. And they kind of go together at the end to make the air have more force even back here at the end of the airplane. This is an Italian trainer, kind of the prior version of that airplane I got to fly in Orlando in the simulator. Here's the Ventral Strikes on there. This is an F-14, also retired now, but F-14s are big girls. This thing is probably 10 feet long too. And over here we have a Learjet. You can see right at the end of the airplane, they have these things to have more force to put the nose down. These two airplanes have a T-tail, so a high tail in the back. And you can see here, if the relative wind was like that, this wing here is going to blank out the back wing, unlike airplanes that have it lower. This is very dangerous. So if you do get into a stall, the horizontal stabilizer gets blanked out. You don't have any control authority anymore. Can't put the nose down. So both of these airplanes have a stick pusher. They don't only have a stick shaker, where the airplane says, hey, you better watch out. So it starts shaking, and it's really scary. The whole thing starts shaking and making a horrible sound. So they have those too, but then it has a stick pusher. If you go any further higher with the nose, the airplane itself puts the nose down for it to avoid this thing called a deep stall. Does anybody want to take a guess what kind of airplane that is? I'll help you out. It's called a wedge tail. It's Australia and Singapore and Korea, South Korea, I think, operate this airplane. It's a little bit like an E3. I mean, an AWACS plane. Yeah, E3 Century, right. You can see the antenna right there. This is the tail. And on top of the fuselage is this antenna thing. This is based on a Boeing 737-700. So the BBJ, really, the increased gross weight 737-700. And look at the size of these Ventral Strikes here. So it seems like Boeing knew about this already and could have just taken these same pieces, maybe, put them on the MAX, and that would have been it. So how sad is that? Pretty amazing. And do you have any questions?
Yeah, so do you think in general it's just Boeing's, like, I guess, negligence and trying to, like, save costs there, why they didn't add this and these other features?
Yes, definitely. And then people that said this sort of thing got fired. Anybody who didn't toe the party line kind of had a problem. And some of them had to get a lawyer even, which is just bottomless. I mean, it really, I still can't believe it. And I couldn't believe it at the time. And like I said, I couldn't believe how many people, they didn't know anything about this. I'm still surprised. And some other people too, who are titans of the industry that David knows as well. It's amazing. That's why I wanted to talk to you today about this. And let's see, I can't get that last one to pop up here. There we go. So I wanted to show you, let me see if this is going to work here. Can you see that?
Yeah, I think we see part of it, maybe not all of it, but we can see like volatility, aircraft type, and
let me move this again. We might get it to work here. Yeah. How about now?
Yeah, I think we can see all of it. Yeah.
I think you can see all of it now.
Yep.
This is done in Python in a Django environment on a server. It took a long time to do this. It wasn't easy. And it's based on a very cool idea that I can't talk much about, but I can show you how it works. Let's do 2021. And year 7. We'll make this lower so it doesn't take as long. But it's based on simulation, which is the only way to have taken into account what's happened in the last 2 years here. Nobody saw that coming, this whole pandemic thing where the entire world is going to get together and try to kill aviation. I mean, seriously, I never would have expected this, and no one else did either. I guarantee there are some people who have financed airplanes for a long time, and now they're wondering why they ever did that. When you hear power by the hour, I guarantee you the people I used to work with at the bank, the credit committee people, first time they heard about that would have been the last time they financed an airplane. Power by the hour. Think about that for a second. So you got a 777-300 ER, $150 million. And now we're gonna pay that back with power by the hour. No way. Can you see that now? See the answer here? It says future market simulation.
Yeah.
So when I was at the bank already, I was amazed to find people forecasting aircraft values in 10 years or whatever. And the answer was 24.2. And that was it. And I said to them, what are the odds of that? What's the probability of that happening? And there was dead silence on the other side of the phone. They had never thought about that because nobody wanted them to. There's a big market out there that you'll see. There's a big market out there for the wrong answer, sadly. People can make money with the wrong answer. And some of them only care about that. They need to get their bonus paid. If the bank has trouble in 10 years, they won't be there. So that's life, I guess. That's how it is. But I know there are credit committee people and other people at the bank who care about the bank and not, not losing money for their shareholders or depositors or whoever they are. But basically, this is something David and I and Andrew have set up, and we need to update this really. But you see in the beginning here, that used to look more normal. So we have this shock. Basically, we have a shock term in the model. And that's what's going on here. So for the foreseeable future here, and I wonder how many years this is going to go. If they keep having another variant and another scare show on TV, and everybody thinks because they saw it on all their different channels on the TV, it must be right. This can go on for a long time. And now over here in Germany, they're saying, well, the shots are not as effective as we said before, and we're going to have to get a booster one, and maybe every 3 months. We'll see. that is not impressing me much. The people we caught it from had 2 shots. It was my wife's sister. And we had to go over there because her mother had died, sadly. So we were over there handling that. And I noticed her sister was coughing. And sure enough, the next day, Simona was sick. And then I was sick in a day or 2. And they both also got sick, even though they both have had 2 shots. So much for that story. But like I said, this sort of thing can go on for a long time. It already has been 2 years almost. And so we're having to think about maybe, especially airplanes like this, narrow body airplanes are not so badly affected. But basically that's the 2D answer there. And you can see over time, the distribution widens, and some of them are really wide out here. Here's a 3D picture, which is cool because of Python. Python had a very simple way to do this. Looks very cool. But also it's like over here is like a light shining on this year's forecast. So you can see the distribution over here for these different years. And this is all of the 20 future forecast years. And you can see it is more populated here on the left because the useful life is what drives that. And we're not really sure about the useful life in 2035 and all these other years. So you can see here, it looks kind of more normal because we're pretty close to that. We can be pretty confident about the useful life in here. But as you go through time, it gets less certain. And this is the mean value here. Also, thank you to Python because it was so simple to do that. This is year 7. And you can select any year on the previous page. But you can see year 7 up here too. And these are lease rates here. This is interesting because the lease rate factor, that I bet you know what that is simulated too as the simulation runs. So it takes into account the kind of market reality that we're not sure what that number is either. So anytime you're not sure, you can use simulation to get closer to the right answer. And you can see this one looks a lot different from the values, and it's more uneven. But we've looked at that a lot. We're pretty confident that that is a realistic kind of view to take over time. And here's the 3D picture for lease rates. Looks cool too. And the 20 future ones and the year 7 one. It's all pretty similar. And the input bubble reproduces itself again after you've run that. So if you want to change anything, you just change it right there and go for it. And let's look at the other model. We got like 9 minutes left. Let's look at the other model real quick. We also have, let me show you this real quick, what we are doing and what people are very interested in, because the airline risk is the primary one. If you own the airplane, you don't really care what the value is until the airline gets a little bit sideways. Then you start worrying about it. Oh, wait a minute, let me change this real quick. So we're talking with some people in Frankfurt who have a very cool model that will save us years. But basically, we forecast a credit score using the same model, the same logic for the aircraft future value. So in this case, we're forecasting a credit score of an airline. And because of the idea, because of the way the model is set up, it was very easy to do this as well. And we're thinking about other applications too. But these people in Frankfurt, their model for a big airline, say like Lufthansa, they look out about a year in the future. For somebody like Ryanair, because they change their schedule more often, and it's a function of their schedule, the output of their model is. So for Ryanair, we could do like a 6-month view into the future. Nobody else has one of those. So this could be very interesting. It's not done yet. And in this case, we say 2023. We'll be updating this here just to do 1 year probably. Because even having a 1 year kind of warning system is a good thing compared to having nothing. And let's look at this model real quick. This is a lease IRR model, and it's dynamic. So first I had this done in Excel, and it took 2 years to get it right. I had accountants helping me. I had a guy who's former CFO of a big leasing company in Asia. Took forever. It was a huge deal. It was like climbing a mountain. And I mean, I'm good at code. I'm good at Excel. They had other people try this and fail. They couldn't do it. But they said, okay, well, let's let Bill have a go, you know? And I did it, and I got it done. And then we bumped into the limits of Excel. I wanted to use simulation in here too. And Excel takes forever, and it's just not as good. Python is set up for it. And they have modules and packages set up you can just use, and it takes 20 minutes. It's amazing how cool Python is. It's a little bit slower because it's built on top of C++. C++ is very fast, but this interface is a big deal and takes a while, I guess. But you can see all the parameters here. So I won't waste time with that because we're getting down to being done. But it's all the standard things, nothing new on here. There's always some upfront costs and annual sorts of things going on. Depends on the portfolio really and how it's set up. Maybe you have an asset manager, and I guess their fee would be in there. That's a little weird too, because they can have extra things come bombing in there too. The lease rate, future sale price, that's the, I guess the second driver or third after, it depends on, it could be lease rate, future sale price, or the equipment cost. Usually it's the big driver. You make your money on the first day, like in any kind of investment really. If you get the airplane for way cheaper, you take a lot of risk out. Here, we have a way for them to add to the useful life if they want. It's fixed in the code. And business jets can have a different one, or if you convert a passenger airplane to a freighter, it'll go out to 40 maybe. We also have downtime. That's one of the reasons we had to quit using Excel. That was going to be a huge deal in Excel, but in Python, it's just an array that you update later. It was so simple. This is after downtime. You put a discount on the original lease rate that you had. And this is storage fees and insurance and whatever you need to pay while the airplane is not leased out. And we have maintenance reserves in here too, even though they're gradually disappearing, they're still around. And if I was going to do a lease, I would want the airplane to have its own money. That's basically what it is. It's the airplane's money. And if you buy a lease and it's got a balance, it goes in there. And you earn interest on that account. Some people, we added this, one of the last things we added, some of the lessors we were talking to have convinced their auditors that it's okay to take some of the maintenance reserve money into income, which seems not right to me, really. Like I said, it's the airplane's money, but they don't do that much, I guess. And I guess if they need that, I guess, okay, go ahead. But let's run this just like it is and see what happens. So there's the answer for a CEO A320. And these are numbers that are just in the initial values in the form in Python. So we didn't have to type it in all the time. So also, I thought it would be interesting. So they select the future sale year right there. 2029. So these are the book value sales starting in 2029. So you can see the trend. If we sell the airplane just for book value, this is what the return is. So if you can wait to 2032 and sell it, get a book value sale, make a little money still. So that's interesting. Let me show you the solvers. If we want to have, let's say, make it 15% here, and you want to solve for the debt equity split, excuse me, whoops, clicked on the wrong thing. There it is. And there's the return, 15%. Do you know what a binary search is? Do either of you guys do code? Not really? Okay, good. Good for you anyway. It's a big deal. It's a hassle. And it's only fun on the last day. Once you finally get it to work, then it's great. But before that, it wasn't great. Let's solve for the sale price to get a 15% return. It is right there. So it's a powerful model, this thing. And if you were a new investor, you would not have anything like this, but you should have. Now I've solved for the lease rate that you need with all the other things staying like they were entered by the user. You need that lease rate to get a 15% return. And then you can see the return changed right here too. So the book value didn't change, but at that lease rate, the return is lower. So it all checks out. You wouldn't believe what I've seen people do. I saw a guy, CEO of a bank in Japan. How he got the job again, I don't know. We showed him this in Excel. We showed him the Excel file because it's easier to detail the parameters and people can see the balance sheet, the cash flows are in and all that. After that, he went home, got his HP-12C. Do you know what that is? Hewlett-Packard little calculator. It's sophisticated. It's really cool. But he typed a bunch of stuff in, got his answer, and he said this was wrong. And I was amazed. I said, well, you know, I feel sorry for your bank and the shareholders then, because you're just messing everything up, I bet. It's incredible what passes for good and how some of these people get hired. I don't get it. So we can run a simulation here. Let me show you that real quick. I'll just run it like it is. It's going to take a second. But basically, it takes these parameters and varies them through a range that the user can set. So it takes into account uncertainty over time. And I've never seen one of these. All the lessors I've talked to don't have this either, which I was stunned about because it's, you know, simulation is about as simple as it gets. You should read about how you do this in the code. Every computer has a random number generator. And that's what we're using here. It's called the Mersenne twister algorithm. Same one that Excel uses, really. And we are over our time, so I guess we're done. Any questions?
I just have several comments on this model because I'm just out of curiosity. So is this Monte Carlo simulation, or is I didn't mean to like probe any business secret.
Oh, that's not a secret. There's nothing new there. That's been done.
Yeah.
Banks and bond traders have used simulation for over 100 years. Before there was any mention of a computer was a person. So they had a room of 100 people. Each of them took a subset of the data, ran all the calculations and wrote it down. Then they put it all together and got the distribution. So simulation is nothing new. Computers are new. And very good. This computer here is amazing. But there's nothing new there. Monte Carlo simulation, you know, call it what you want, really. It's a very powerful tool to get your numbers right. That's the whole point. Let's get the numbers right and then try to make money based on that.
Yes, I completely agree, because for this semester we had like a equity research project. So what we need to do is kind of to value a company in China, and I think we use the simulation at the end. So just kind of want to show like the distribution of the share price and to make
Right.
more reasonable or more convincing kind of
Right.
judgments. Yeah,
Reasonable
I think that's
is a good word. Reasonable is a powerful word. If you don't have good reasons to base your analysis on and your eventual decision, you probably shouldn't have that job either. You know what I mean? It's the same guy again.
And I'm just a little bit curious how you would use this distribution. So after you got this distribution, so what I did is, okay, I showed this distribution to in the report, and I say, okay, so current price is here. For example, it's above, for example, 30% of the distribution. So I guess there's a 70% of probability that you're gonna have a higher share price than the current price. So I kind of use that reasoning to justify my recommendation. So I'm wondering how you would use this kind of distribution to kind of how you would use it. Yeah.
The future value distribution, I think, is, like I said, is way better than a single point answer. I think, you know, Dick Forsberg has written a white paper a couple of years ago you guys should read. He basically says the appraisers needed to get better. We basically are very like-minded about that. So the future value distribution is trying to help people take the risk out and get the right answer for the future value. So they structure the loan right or the lease right. You know, the future sale price is a big input into the IRR model and really determines the answer to a large degree. So if you could do a better job of that, then you can set the lease rate right as well, get the debt set up correctly as well, and just take some of the risk out of the whole business. This IRR simulation is really, let me show you, let me back up one here. Is this the same one? Yes, so you can see the range values here. Hang on a second. Sale price simulation range upper limit and lower limit. So you can go through here for all the parameters and set up this range analytically too, and try to get that more so it's reasonable again, you know, based on reasons. The lease rate too. So if you go through the whole thing and set up the ranges so it makes sense, you know, these are just typed in, these are just off the initial value off the form in Python. Then at the end, the answer has more value to you and your risk approving people. You know, the lessors have credit committees too. They look at every deal and they try to get the numbers right. That's the whole point here, to help people make money and not break the company. Like I saw my former people, these people I thought were smart. On paper, they looked like $2.5 million, but they could not have been more stupid, which is a shock still to me. This is years ago. I still can't, and I talked to Andrew. Andrew knows about all this. He was involved in it too at the time, and worked together with them too sometimes. So it's amazing how people can look so good on paper and look like the right guy, but just totally mess it up anyway. I guess this guy was somebody's brother-in-law or something. That's, you know, that's how he got the job, which is a real shame. I mean, it's funny, but it's really awful if you invested in that and lost all your money. It's ugly mess.
It happens.
So live and learn.
It happens.
It happens. Hey, it really does. and aircraft. I'm surprised that ABS deals have come back so quickly. They've changed the structure. They got their numbers right, and they changed it around to take a lot of the risk out, and especially help out the higher tiers of the lower risk levels. So there's just no place else right now to put your money. Here in Germany, interest rates are negative since years. So they charge you money to put your money in the bank. So I hope that this pandemic stuff will get over with and things will get back like a 777-300 ER. We've seen a few days ago, 4-year-old airplane, not flying right now. Looks good too. That's beautiful. And the numbers too, the cycles and hours and everything. That's like a $110 million airplane still in normal times. And they were saying, well, people were offering 15 for it. 15 million. But you can get a G550 for 18 or 19. So that's crazy. And that can't continue if we want to be attractive to investors. It's got to be more stable than that, and predictable and reasonable again. So I hope you guys in your career can avoid these silly people and be lucky. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. If you play golf, you know what I mean. And lucky is great. Lucky, can make all the difference. So I wish you luck in your life. And hope you liked the presentation today.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing all of your experience.
Yeah, no problem.
I want to quickly say, the only bad thing about luck is when you're off at the first hole and you hit a nice drive shot, but then you play the rest of the game and the other 18 holes don't go so well. But
yeah, golf is mean.
That's every time for me. So
golf is mean. You really need to go hit balls, and it'll get less mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's hard. It's a lot of fun though. I really, over here this time of year, it's not possible, but in Florida, could play every day.
Yeah, year round.
Yeah. I'm from Florida, so missing that this time of year. Yeah. So thanks a lot. And good luck, like I said.
Yeah, it looks like you're already recovered, so no reason.
I feel way better,
yeah. Feel better, but glad that you could make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Take care.
And maybe we'll do another one of these sometime. We'll see.
That'd be cool.
And one more thing, it is lucky already for both of you that you have David Yu for a teacher. He really does know, and he's not afraid to say he doesn't know. Too, I've met a lot of PhDs who were kind of narcissists, and everything they said was great. They know they got a PhD in everything. He's not like that. So what he says, and he thinks he knows, he does know. So he's trying to help you, and that's pretty cool. Me too. That's been the idea. I hope I helped you.
No, this helped a lot.
Good. Yeah. Take care. Have a nice night.
Yeah.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Yeah, no problem.